Welcome back to Make It Mental, everybody. In this series build, since this is the final one, I'm going to try and go over in more detail than other videos I did of these 1/32 scale slot cars turned into RC, just to give a little bit of extra information for those people who do want to do something like this. I'm going to share with you my results, my plans, what happens, what I did to fix it, if any of those things come up. In other words, I'm not going to hide anything. As you can see, the motor's already there. If you've already watched a previous video, I do have a various assortment of bearings, and as you can see, let me zoom in a little bit right there. The one in the center of your screen is a flanged bearing. The one on your right is a non-flanged, and then the one on your left is a brass bushing. There's nothing wrong at all with the brass bushings. They roll very, very smooth. So what I would say is if you pick out your slot car from a website, order some bearings and bushings, because you don't know what something might change. I promise you, something might change. You might need to convert from one to another, right? But I like how the brass feels on the rear. Since the rear is not steering, I'm going to leave the brass alone. The brass feels really nice. It rolls super, super easy. In fact, I think it rolls a little bit smoother than the ball bearings. So your vehicle might not be listed what type of axle size it is. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but try and find out the axle size of your vehicle here in the United States. Get yourself a good ruler, one that's got 30 seconds of an inch, right? Most things are not measured in smaller increments unless you're a machinist. So this particular axle is 3/32, because the next biggest line is 1/8 of an inch. Right, so we can clearly see the 1/8 inch mark, and so there's 1, 2, 3 30 seconds there. So we need 3/32 inside diameter ball bearings, and it's very important to find that ID, as it's sometimes called, in this ball bearing that I have from the other builds, or for whatever reason I have them. This axle shaft does not work, but this brass one does. Right, that brass one does work perfectly. So this is designed for the brass. And some of your ball bearings might come in these little plastic cups. You can easily pop them out. I think these little tiny ones came in there. Also, if you search Orlando Hunter, or however you enunciate it, the 1/32 scale RC off-road vehicle, I think some of the ball bearings in that particular kit are compatible with some of these vehicles. I think I've used at least one set of bearings on one of them. I don't remember which one. But get prepared. And so now I want to grind this flat, grind that flat, that flat, that flat, and that flat. And then I want to fill in this cavity, right? I don't want this open. So I can use a piece of scrap ABS plastic. Then I ran into this piece of aluminum that I had, and then it looks like it just fits right in there. There might be a little bit of a gap back there on the side, but if we look right here, check that out. I mean, that's like it was meant to be. So in other words, I'll have to cut this off and then trim that flat, and then we'll screw it here and screw it here. And that's going to add some extra weight along with some rigidity to the chassis, so it should improve the overall handling of the vehicle versus just looking pretty. So if we look over here at my first one that I built, you can see I think I just used epoxy to fill in this area right here. This was an inline motor. This one's called a sidewinder motor, and you'll have to notch the plastic on the chassis accordingly to get steering. And then there's not much weight. This is probably the lightest one by far. And that one be my very first one. I learned after driving it a very short distance that the rear wheels spin quite easily, so I decided to make the Tamiya out of 3/32 weldable steel, and I attached it to the plastic chassis. This helps give it weight and extra traction to I forget the name of this type of rubber. I want to call it a silicone rubber. I could be wrong, but anyway, there you go there. Kind of a side-by-side comparison. And then there will be the Porsche next to it. And then the Ironman Camaro is, for some reason, even smaller. Let me bring that out just for a visual. So there's a look so far. For some reason, the Ironman Camaro is the smallest one out of the bunch. I would have figured the Porsche would have been the smallest one. The Tamiya 1/32 slot car, it's not really a scale model of anything in particular, although it looks like a certain type of Mercedes. I always draw a blank on it, but it looks like an AMG. I forget. Anyway, the Corvette, Ironman Camaro. This one here really suffers in space. This one here suffers in space badly too because the motor is mounted just about in the middle of the chassis, so you have to take these things into consideration. This one here wasn't bad. I used the HBX receiver, ESC all-in-one combination. And then I got a coreless motor. I forget what size coreless motor, but it's for a drone, powering the rear wheels. This one here uses a servo motor to power the rear wheels. And this one here uses a brushless motor that you can kind of see down in there. So all of these are a little bit different. This one uses a 130 sized brushed motor. So far, between this one and this one that I have, well, I've now driven this one too, but so far between this one, and this one still drives the best. This one being so light, it likes to spin very easily. So now we go in the last one right here, the Porsche. Have a good day.